Li Bong had just stepped out of the shower when he saw her. Zainab. Water dripped from his bare torso, tracing the scars and muscle earned from years of violence and power. He didn't bother reaching for a towel. He rarely cared about modesty in his own house, especially not as the head of one of Seoul's most feared crime families. Yet for some reason, the sight of her standing frozen in his bedroom stirred something unfamiliar. She was African, small-framed, dressed modestly in her maid's uniform. Her dark skin contrasted sharply with the white silk sheets behind her. She wasn't supposed to be here when he was. Her eyes widened, then immediately dropped to the floor. "What are you doing in my room?" Li Bong asked coolly, his Korean accent thick but controlled. Zainab swallowed. "I was instructed to clean your bedroom, sir. I didn't know you were inside." He watched her closely. The way her fingers curled into her apron, the way her breathing quickened. Fear or something else, he crossed his arms, unimpressed. "You walked into a man's bedroom without knocking." "I should have knocked," she said softly, still not looking at him. "I made a mistake." Something about her calm defiance intrigued him. He stepped closer. Zainab instinctively backed away until the bed pressed against the back of her knees. She sat without meaning to. Li Bong loomed over her, his gaze dark and unreadable. "Do you know what people say about me?" he asked. She shook her head. "I don't listen to gossip. A lie or admirable discipline." "Afraid," he noted. "Yet you didn't run." "I'm just here to do my work," she said firmly now, lifting her chin. "I came to work," he smirked. "Women don't enter my space by accident." Before she could respond, he leaned in, caging her on the bed, close enough to feel the heat of her skin, close enough to inhale the faint scent of soap and lavender clinging to her. She was trembling now, but she didn't look away. "Don't," she warned, her voice steady but strained. He didn't listen. Before her brain could process anything, his lips crashed onto hers, stealing her breath. The kiss was sudden, claiming. His hand roamed over her body, skimming her waist, her back, searching for warmth for reaction, but the hem of her dress stopped him short. Her breath caught, lips parting in startled resistance, and that single moment was enough to unravel his restraint. He kissed her harder, slower now, tasting her, soft, sweet, dangerously intoxicating. He was a man who had tasted many women, taken many pleasures, but this was different. This kiss tasted divine. Her innocence wasn't fragile. It was fire wrapped in restraint. And he wanted it. The slap came without warning. The sound echoed. Li Bong staggered back, stunned not by the sting, but by the audacity. Zainab stood, watery eyes blazing with unshed tears. She fled. The door slammed shut. Li Bong remained where he was, fingers brushing his cheek. But his thoughts were nowhere near the pain. He wasn't sorry. The kiss replayed in his mind. The warmth. The softness. The way her body had reacted before she pulled away, she was beautiful. Infuriatingly so. And if given the chance, he would do it again. Welcome to K-AFRIQUE TV. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications button for more stories. That was 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks of him requesting her schedule be changed to his floor permanently. 6 weeks of charged silences in hallways. 6 weeks of her avoiding eye contact while he studied every movement she made. 6 weeks of the household staff whispering about why Li Bong hadn't brought a woman home since the night the new maid slapped him. Zainab had come to Seoul 3 years ago with a single purpose: disappear, be small, be invisible. Send money home to Ghana so her 15-year-old brother Kwame could stay in the boarding school that would give him the future their dead parents couldn't. She had a degree in early childhood education. Top of her class. Dreams of opening a learning center for poor children who deserved better than what the world offered them. But dreams didn't pay for $3,000 a year school fees. So she scrubbed floors in a foreign country where people whispered about her in a language she was still learning. Too tall for Korean men. Much body. Pretty face. Shame about the rest. Heard it all before, different language. Same message. Her ex-fiancé Samuel had said it kindest. "You're beautiful, Zainab, but you're exhausting to love." 3 days before their wedding, he'd married someone quieter, softer, smaller. So Zainab had learned to fold herself into corners, keep her voice down, make herself invisible. And for 3 years it worked. Until Li Bong looked at her like she was a wildfire and he wanted to burn. She told herself the kiss meant nothing. A powerful man taking what he wanted. She'd slapped him. Run, that should have been the end, but he didn't fire her, didn't punish her. Instead, he moved her to his floor. Permanently. And every time she turned a corner, he was there. Watching, waiting, not threatening, just present. Like a storm that hadn't decided whether to break or simply linger on the horizon forever. It was a Thursday night when everything shattered. Zainab wasn't supposed to be working. The schedule had her off at 6, but Mrs. Choi, the head housekeeper, had mixed up the rotation, asked if she could clean Lee Bong's private office before she left. He's out for the evening. Business dinner in Gangnam. Won't be back until midnight. Zainab agreed. Extra hours meant extra money meant Quame's next tuition payment covered early. She took her cleaning supplies to the 3rd floor, down the hall, past his bedroom, to the heavy oak door at the end that was always locked. Tonight it wasn't. She knocked anyway. No answer, pushed it open, and walked into hell. The man tied to the chair was already dead in every way that mattered. His face was unrecognizable, pulp and bone and blood, one eye swollen shut, the other staring at nothing. His mouth hung open, 3 teeth on the floor beneath him. Lee Bong stood behind him, brass knuckles on his right hand, a knife in his left. He wasn't frantic, wasn't out of control. He was methodical, surgical. He drove the knife into the man's shoulder, not to kill, but to anchor. Used it as leverage to yank the man's head back. I asked you a question, Lee Bong said in Korean, his voice calm as Sunday morning. Where did you send the shipment? The man gurgled something wet and broken. Lee Bong sighed. Pulled the knife out. Wiped it on the man's shirt. That's when he saw her. Their eyes met across the carnage. Zainab couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't scream. She just stood there, cleaning supplies in hand, lavender soap and blood competing for dominance in the air. Lee Bong didn't flinch. Didn't look surprised. He just tilted his head slightly. Close the door, Zainab. She couldn't. Her hand wouldn't obey. The man in the chair made a sound, half plea, half death rattle. Lee Bong drove the knife into his throat. Fast, efficient. Merciful only in its speed, the gurgling stopped. Zainab's cleaning supplies hit the floor. She ran down the hallway, past his bedroom. Toward the stairs, she made it 5 steps before his hand closed around her wrist, not violent, not bruising, but absolute. He spun her around, backed her against the wall, caged her with his body the same way he had on his bed 6 weeks ago. But this time there was blood on his hands, on his shirt, on his face. Me go, she whispered. No. I won't tell anyone, I swear. I'll leave tonight. I'll Zainab. His voice cut through her panic like a blade through silk. You're not leaving. You're going to kill me. He looked at her like she'd said something absurd. No, I'm not. Then what? You became mine the moment you saw me and didn't scream. Her breath stopped. He leaned closer. Blood and sandalwood and something darker. You should have screamed, should have run the second you opened that door, but you just stood there, watching. Like you were trying to understand me. I was terrified. You were curious. You're insane. I'm practical. He released her wrist, stepped back just enough to let her breathe. You have 2 choices. You stay under my protection in this house where no one can touch you, or you walk out that door and I can't promise you'll make it to the street. That's not a choice. It's the only one I'm giving you. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. Why? Because killing you would be a waste. Of what? His eyes dragged over her face like he was memorizing bone structure. Of someone who looks at me like I'm human. He moved her to the east wing that night, not the servants' quarters, not a guest room, a suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, a bed big enough for 4 people, a bathroom with marble counters and a soaking tub she'd only seen in magazines. Her belongings arrived within the hour. Her textbooks, her Bible, the photo of Quame in his school uniform. Mrs. Choi brought them personally, her face carefully neutral. Mr. Lee says you're no longer part of the household staff, the older woman said quietly. You answer to him directly now, no one else. Zainab sat on the edge of the bed. What does that mean? Mrs. Choi's expression softened. It means you're under his protection, and in this house that's the safest place you can be. I watched him kill a man tonight. I know. You're telling me I'm safe, Mrs. Choi set the last box down. Moved toward the door. Paused. He's killed 18 people in the 3 years I've worked here. All of them deserved it. None of them were innocent. How do you know I'm innocent? The housekeeper smiled sadly. Because if you weren't, you'd be in that chair instead of this room. She left. Zainab sat alone in a suite worth more than her entire life, surrounded by luxury she'd never asked for, trapped by a man who kissed like salvation and killed like it was breathing. She should have been planning her escape. Instead, she was remembering the way he'd looked at her in the hallway. Asterisk, like you were trying to understand me. Asterisk, God help her. She was not the first 3 days. She didn't see him. Meals appeared outside her door. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, prepared by the kitchen staff. Left on a tray with fresh flowers she hadn't asked for. She tried the door once. It opened. She wasn't locked in. She could walk the estate, use the library, sit in the garden. But she couldn't leave. Security was everywhere. Polite, professional, immovable. Miss Mensah, they'd say with a bow. Mr. Lee has requested you remain on the grounds for your safety. Your safety. As if the danger was outside these walls instead of sleeping 3 doors down from her every night. On the 4th day, she found the file. She'd been looking for a book in the library, reached for a leather-bound copy of poetry on the top shelf, knocked something off behind it. A manila folder hit the floor, papers scattered. Her name was on every page, *** Zainab Mensa. 26, Ghanaian national. Work visa expires June 2025, ***, but it went deeper, brother. Quaim Mensa, 15, boarding school in Accra. Fees, 3,000/year. ***, sends 60% of paycheck home every Friday, *** degree. Early childhood education, University of Ghana, graduated top 5% of class, *** engagement broken 3 days before wedding. Ex-fiancé cited. Exhausting to love. Asterisk and then, handwritten notes in the margins in sharp, precise Korean she could barely read. Asterisk afraid of butterflies, not spiders. Asterisk skips breakfast. Asterisk tea at 3 p.m. 3 sugars. Chamomile, asterisk hums gospel songs while cleaning. Off-key, asterisk helps gardener's daughter with English homework every Tuesday. Asterisk he'd been watching her, not for days, for weeks before the kiss. Before the office. Before any of this. He'd been studying her like she was an equation he needed to solve. The door opened behind her. She didn't need to turn around to know it was him. You weren't supposed to find that, Bong said. Zainab's hands tightened on the folder. How long have you been watching me? Since the day you started working here. Moved into the room, closed the door, didn't come closer. Just stood there in a black suit with his hands in his pockets like they were discussing the weather. Because you laughed. She turned. What? 6 weeks ago, in the garden, you were teaching the gardener's daughter English. She got a word right. You clapped your hands and laughed like it was the best thing that happened all day. Zainab stared at him. I heard it from my office 3 floors up, he continued. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard someone laugh like that, like joy wasn't a performance. So you decided to stalk me? I decided to pay attention. What? To the fact that you're a woman with a university degree scrubbing my floors. To the fact that you send most of your money home and live in a room the size of my closet. To the fact that you arrive 15 minutes early every day and never complain. He took 1 step closer. To the fact that your ex-fiancé was an idiot who couldn't handle a woman with a spine. Her breath caught. Not too much, Zainab. His voice dropped. You're exactly enough. She should have been repulsed. Should have thrown the file at him. Should have demanded he let her go. Should have done anything except stand there feeling seen for the first time in 3 years. You killed a man 4 days ago, she said instead. I did. In your own house. Now you're telling me I'm enough. Bong's expression didn't change. Those 2 things aren't contradictory. They're insane, perhaps. He moved closer. Close enough that she could smell sandalwood and expensive cologne and something underneath that was just him. But they're both true. Do you want from me? I want you to stop looking at me like I'm going to hurt you. You're a killer. Selective. He reached out, took the file from her hands, set it on the desk. The man in my office 4 days ago sold children. 11 girls between the ages of 8 and 14. Sold them to men in Singapore who paid in cryptocurrency and left no trails. Zainab's stomach turned. I asked him where he sent them. He refused to answer, so I made him. Bong's voice was flat, clinical. He died before he told me everything I needed, but he told me enough. We found 9 of the girls, sent them home, the other 2. He stopped, looked away. Other 2 were already dead. Silence filled the library like smoke. Not a victim, Zainab, and I'm not a hero, but I'm not a monster either. I'm just a man who does monstrous things to people who deserve them. What do I deserve? She whispered. His eyes came back to hers, dark, burning, certain. Everything. On the 6th day, she watched him kill again, not in person. Through the security monitors in the East Wing suite, she discovered them by accident, a panel behind the bookshelf that controlled feeds from cameras all over the estate. The gardens, the gates, the driveway, and the courtyard. It was 2 a.m. when she woke to the sound of engines. Black SUVs pulling through the gates. Men dragging someone out of the trunk. She should have looked away. She didn't. Bong was already in the courtyard, flanked by 4 of his men. He wore a dark suit. No tie. Sleeves rolled to his elbows. The man on his knees was begging in Korean she could barely follow. Bong crouched down, said something. The man spat at him. Bong stood, pulled a gun from his waistband. Pressed it to the man's temple. No hesitation. No ceremony, just a single shot that echoed through the speakers in her room. The body dropped. Lee Bong handed the gun to one of his men, said something else. They dragged the body away, and then he looked up, directly at the camera she was watching through, directly at her. He knew 20 minutes later he knocked on her door. She opened it. He stood there in the same suit, blood spatter on his collar, hands washed clean but the smell of gunpowder still clinging to him. "You watched," he said. "Yes." And Zainab met his eyes. "Was it necessary?" "Yes." "Then I won't ask you to apologize for what you are." Something in his expression shifted, softened, cracked. He stepped into her suite, closed the door behind him. "You should hate me," he said quietly. "I should." "You don't." She wanted to lie, wanted to tell him she was terrified, disgusted, that every part of her was screaming to run, but she'd spent 3 years lying to herself about being small, about being less, about folding into corners so men like Samuel could feel bigger, and she was tired. "No," she admitted. "I don't." Lee Bong crossed the space between them, stopped inches away, close enough to touch but didn't. "You're the first person who's ever looked at me and didn't ask me to be less." His hand came up, cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "I don't want less, Zainab. I want all of you, the loud, the bold, the too much. I want the woman who slapped me and ran. I want the woman who watches me kill and asks if it was necessary. I want." She kissed him, not because she forgave the violence, not because she'd forgotten the blood, but because for the first time in her life, someone wanted her exactly as she was. And that was more dangerous than any gun. The kiss was different this time. No claim. No theft, just hunger meeting hunger, need meeting need. His hands were in her hair, hers gripping his collar, pulling him closer even though closer wasn't possible. He tasted like mint and sin and choices she couldn't take back. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. "I can't promise you safety," he said. "My world is blood and bullets and enemies who'd use you to break me. I know. Can't promise you clean hands. If you stay, you're complicit. Every death, every deal, every choice I make, you're part of it. I know. I can't promise I won't be possessive, jealous, obsessive. Because the thought of you with anyone else makes me want to burn cities." She pulled back enough to look at him. "I didn't ask for promises. What do you want?" "Want to stop being invisible, even if it costs me everything." His thumb traced her lower lip. "It will." "Then I'll pay it." 3 weeks later, the rival made his move. Kang De-young, Lee Bong's competitor in the arms trade. A man who'd been circling for years, waiting for weakness. He found it in her. The intel came through Tae-hyun, Lee Bong's second in command. A man built like a boxer with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. "Kang knows about her," Tae-hyun said, standing in Lee Bong's office at midnight. "Has photos, her in the garden, at the window, in your car." Lee Bong's expression went dead cold. "How many people know?" "His inner circle, maybe 6 men. They're planning something." "No yet, but he sent a message, says if you want her to stay breathing, you'll cede the southern ports." Silence. "Then get her to the panic room." "Already on it. But Bong." "What?" Tae-hyun hesitated. "He's going to keep pushing. As long as she's your weakness, he'll exploit it." "She's not a weakness." "Then what is she?" Lee Bong looked at his oldest friend. "Everything." The panic room was in the sub-basement, steel-reinforced walls, air filtration, enough food and water for 2 weeks, and monitors showing every camera on the property. Lee Bong took Zainab there himself, his hand on her lower back, his body between her and every shadow. "Be safe here," he said, punching in the code. 7:23, Quame's birthday. "Where are you going?" "To end this." Fear lanced through her. "Don't. I don't have a choice." "You always have a choice." He turned to her, cupped her face with both hands. "If I don't end this tonight, he'll keep coming, and eventually he'll succeed. I won't live in a world where you're not safe. I won't live in a world where you're dead because of me. Zainab, promise me you'll come back." His jaw tightened. "I can't promise that." "Then promise me you'll try." He kissed her, hard, desperate, like he was memorizing her mouth. "Come back," he said against her lips. "I'll always come back to you." The steel door closed between them, and Zainab was alone. She watched through the monitors as he went to war, 10 men, Lee Bong and 9 of his most trusted, against Kang's warehouse on the eastern edge of Seoul. The gunfire started at 1:47 a.m. She watched Lee Bong move through the building like death had learned to walk upright. Precise. Efficient. No wasted movement. 3 men down in the first minute. 5 more in the next 3. Kang tried to run. Lee Bong caught him in the loading bay, dragged him back inside, out of view of the cameras. When he emerged 4 minutes later, his knuckles were bloody and Kang wasn't with him. The building went up in flames 15 minutes later, but someone had been inside the estate the entire time. The explosion came at 8:33 a.m. The panic room shuddered. Lights flickered. Then the door opened. Not Lee Bong. A man she'd never seen before, scarred face, dead eyes, gun in his right hand. "Coming with me," he said in broken English. Zainab's heart stopped. He moved toward her. She grabbed the first thing within reach, a heavy crystal paperweight from the desk Lee Bong had insisted she'd never need. The man lunged. She swung, connected with his temple. He dropped. Blood pooled beneath his head. Zainab stood there, chest heaving, the paperweight still in her hand, staring at what she'd done. The door burst open. Lee Bong, covered in soot and blood, eyes wild, scanning for threats until they landed on her, then the body on the floor, then the paperweight in her hand. He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulled her into his chest. "Are you hurt?" "No, he touched you." "No, I hit him. I didn't mean to, I just—" "Zainab." He pulled back, forced her to look at him. "You protected yourself, that's what I needed you to do." "I think I killed him." Lee Bong glanced at the body. "He's breathing, barely, but you didn't kill him." Relief and disappointment warred in her chest. "Would it bother you if I had?" His hands framed her face. "No, it would make you mine in a way you've never been before. I'm already yours. Like this." He gestured to the blood, the body, the choice she'd made. "This means you've chosen, not because you were afraid, not because you had no options, but because you fought to stay." Tears blurred her vision. "There's blood on my hands. There's blood on mine too. We'll carry it together." She kissed him. Tasted ash and violence and a future that would never be clean. And chose it anyway 6 months later. A small apartment in Blasian. Traditional windows, morning light, the smell of coffee and slightly burnt toast. Lee Bong stood in the kitchen attempting breakfast while humming off-key to a song on the radio. Zainab appeared in his shirt, laughing. "You're burning the eggs." "Burned worse for you." She wrapped her arms around him from behind. Everything was different now. He'd stepped back from the weapons trade. Handed the violent operations to Hyun. Kept only the legitimate businesses, real estate, shipping, investments for her, for this. For the chance at something that looked like peace. "Quame's flight lands at 3, she said softly, her brother, 17 now, coming to Seoul to study. Something Lee Bong had arranged, the debt paid, the visa secured, the future bought with blood money she pretended not to think about. Some gifts didn't need acknowledgement. "Pick him up," Lee Bong said. They ate breakfast together. Simple, domestic, everything he'd never thought he'd deserve. She'd started teaching again, private tutoring for neighborhood children. Building toward the learning center she dreamed of, he'd built the foundation. Literally, bought the property, hired architects, told her it was an investment. They both knew it was love. After breakfast, he pulled her close. "Do you regret it?" "Which part?" "Any of it, all of it, staying when you could have run." Zainab looked up at him. This man who'd killed for her, who'd burned his empire to ashes so she could sleep without fear, who looked at her like she was holy even with blood under both their fingernails. No, even knowing what it cost. Especially knowing what it cost. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "You're mine. You're mine, forever. Until the blood washes away." He smiled. Sad, true. "So forever, then. Ask me if I'm happy." I don't know how to tell them that happiness and guilt taste the same when you're loved by a man who'd kill the world to keep you. I don't know how to explain that being too much for everyone else meant being exactly enough for a monster who learned to be gentle with his hands. I came to Seoul to be small. Instead, I became a queen in an empire built on bones. And some mornings, when the light comes through our small apartment windows and he's burning breakfast and humming off-key, I forget that love isn't supposed to cost this much. But then I see the scar on his shoulder from the bullet meant for me. Or the way Quame looks at him like he's a hero instead of a killer. Or the photo on our mantle from the day we opened the learning center, 20 children who'll never know their school was bought with blood money. And I remember, love didn't save us, violence did. And I chose it with open eyes and steady hands. They say you can't build a life on bodies, but they've never been loved by a man who'd stack them to the sky just to keep you warm. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for understanding. I'm just telling you what happened when a woman who was told she was too much met a man who thought she was exactly enough. And how sometimes the most dangerous love isn't the one that destroys you. It's the one you choose to keep, even when you know better, especially then.